Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Cheryl Benton. I'm the founder and publisher of the Three Tomatoes and the Three Tomatoes Book Publishing. And we're so excited to have you all join us tonight. And I am so excited to be celebrating Robin Lieberman, who is the author of the page turner novel, Searching for September.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, for hosting this event in celebration of my first novel and finding value in my work as a writer.
Well, this is very exciting. I'm so happy to be able to do this with you tonight. So when Robin first reached out to me about publishing her debut novel, I asked her to send me 3 or 4 chapters, which is typically what I do with most people who reach out. And I can usually tell then how well written it is and what the storyline is. And she actually sent me the whole manuscript. And I got to the end of chapter 4 and I couldn't stop reading. And I ended up reading the entire manuscript. And the next day I called Robin. I said, I absolutely love your story and I will be delighted to publish it. So I promise you, it's definitely one of those books that you're not going to be able to put down. So let me tell everyone who may not know you a little bit more about you. Robin is a Brooklyn girl by birth, but she resides in Manhattan these days. She's an educator who became a novelist. And throughout her 30-some years of being a school counselor, she's nurtured her writing through memoirs and poetry. And as I said, Searching for September is her very first novel, though. So, Robin, tell us how you went from writing memoirs and poetry to writing a novel.
Thank you. Becoming a first-time author is absolutely a dream come true for me. I began my college years as a journalism major, and then I found a passion in the world of psychology. At that point, I double majored in both journalism and psychology, and then subsequently I pushed into the field of school counseling. But during all of my years of counseling, I continued writing short stories and poetry on the side. And the novel Searching for September, it pulls it all together. Having the experience in the field of counseling for so many years, and having had the experience of marriage, divorce, midlife dating, but most importantly, listening to the woes of so many women who were struggling in their relationships, I created Seppi, my character, to represent the struggles that many women can connect with.
Well, and you did a beautiful job, and it's a story that we can really all relate to in one way or another. So, tell everyone who's joined us tonight a little bit more about the novel. What's it about?
So, Searching for September tells a story about a divorced middle-aged woman who had always viewed marriage and romance very idealistically. We call her Seppi, which is short for September. She enters a culture of midlife dating and very quickly becomes frustrated and disillusioned. But unexpectedly, she's at a happy hour and she meets this man named Teddy, who is a widowed attorney. And he sweeps her off her feet. They begin this whirlwind romance. And then she finds what she thinks is her needle in the haystack. She falls hopelessly in love and moves into his home with her young daughter. But as their lives unfold, he becomes controlling. He begins to tear her down and play upon her vulnerabilities. But in an effort for her to remain in a romantic relationship where she feels that she has found a great emotional and a great physical connection, she stays tethered to him. And she finds ways to justify his actions, hoping that Teddy, the Teddy that she met in the very beginning, will somehow return. And what I want to add to that is that this is very common in abusive relationships where the man presents himself as a perfect partner, gains a woman's trust, makes her dependent on him, and then all of a sudden his behavior changes.
Well, that's a very important theme in your book, and there's actually two very key themes in the book that we've just touched on, and we want to explore those a little more. One is the challenges of dating in midlife, and we'll talk about that. And I'm sure there are women tuning in right now who are going through the midlife dating experiences, and so many women have become really disengaged basically with the whole process of online dating because it can be so sometimes painful and difficult. And then the second very key thing is this whole topic of emotionally abusive relationships. And I think we've all also probably experienced friends or family members, or may even personally at one point in our lives been involved in that kind of relationship as well. So let's start first with the dating and some of the challenges that Seppi faces. And you have some really wonderful stories in the book about Seppi's online dating experiences. Some of them are very funny, some are a little sad, some are a little poignant. So share some of that with us.
Thank you. So like many women in midlife, Seppi found that dating in midlife can be a challenge, and she was feeling so disappointed date after date. I'd like to read one excerpt from that chapter, which describes only one of her many miserable dates. There were men who were attractive and elusive. Some were out of shape and thoughtful. Those who said they were separated, but not legally, and the dimwits not wearing a wedding band, but have a tan line from removing their ring. The one thing that hurls me out of my comfort zone is frugality. I don't care if you take me to Pizza Palace, but pick up the tab. For Christ's sake, don't ask me to leave a tip that costs as much as the cocktail. On one sweltering hot day after work, I had a meet and greet at a local tavern with a successful ophthalmologist. Indeed, that day was a scorcher. May I have an iced tea with lemon, please? I asked our waiter. Just a glass of water for me, said Guy. Ice water? Are you fucking kidding me? What a joke. Our waiter, the poor bastard, earning close to no tip, returned with the drinks and set them down on coasters. Guy looked at me and then turned to our waiter and asked, this may sound a bit strange, but can I order only a basket of fries? Guy never asked me if I wanted to order something, that cheap and considerate moron. I just shook my head and we awaited the almighty basket. Once the order arrived, Guy slowly plucked each fry from the basket for the duration of our date. It was painful to watch. We chatted for over an hour, the waiter refilling his water glass several times. Guy left a $10 bill on an $8.80 tab. But on my way to the restroom, I shoveled the kid a $5 bill and thanked him. Bye-bye, Guy.
Well, I'm sure that there are a lot of women out there who probably had an guy type person that they've dated once too. And there are, as I said, there are so many other wonderful examples in the story of some of Seppi's disastrous dating adventures. So tell us, what advice would you give to Seppi and other women who are really getting disenchanted with dating?
I think what it really boils down to is having a relationship with yourself first and really learning how to love yourself and get that perspective on what it is that you're looking for. You know, dating is in the 20s to 30s range, dating is very different because a couple is likely to be beginning their journey together. They're doing all the firsts together. When you get into midlife dating, it has a very different look because most people have been married, most people have children, and some even have grandchildren. It's a very, very different look. The other thing I would say is it's important to be your authentic self. And it's critical. And it's critical to be able to voice at the appropriate times what it is that you're looking for, whether it's a long-term relationship or marriage. An onslaught of questions, they don't need to pour out on a first date, but as a connection starts to solidify and the connection progresses and questions are exchanged, don't just hear. Really, really listen to what the other person is saying. And try not to support something that you're strongly not in favor of. There are red flags, and red flags are red flags. It's easy to turn them into green flags to try to fit that square peg in the round hole and not really address the concerns. You know, communicating to your partner things that they want to hear will impress them. It will keep the relationship going, but at the end, both of you will not be on the same page.
Well, that's really great and great advice. So, after a series of dating disasters, Seppi meets Teddy and she falls madly in love with him. And soon, though, she's in the grips of this very manipulative, emotionally abusive man. So, what do you think it was about Seppi and other women who've been in this situation too that makes them susceptible to this kind of scenario and this kind of situation with a guy who comes in and like the white knight swooping them off their feet, right?
Well, for Seppi, for my character, she had a 1950s idealistic view of what relationships would be like. She had a fantasy. She wanted to fulfill that fantasy. In the beginning of the book, she talks about how as a preteen, she would be at her grandparents' house and she would flip through these pamphlets that used to be her mother's. And it branded these solid ideals in her head that, marriage was stress-free and it was uncomplicated. And Seppi entered into marriage with those ideals. We all know that the world is very different nowadays. If I like to read an excerpt from that chapter. In my early 20s, I entered into the sacred union of marriage with billows of beautiful white clouds dancing around my head. Our wedding day rang in a new chapter of our lives with all of the bells and whistles, and I anticipated that every day that followed would be magical, budding into something extraordinary that would last for a lifetime. I waited patiently on that marital platform for the train's light to shine through the tunnel, waiting for the fairy tale to begin. At 23 years old, I had not gained enough sexual and emotional experience to fully share myself with another. Therefore, it was difficult to grasp the bonds of marriage. I operated on my little girl dream that magic will usher us off that platform. Sadly, I could never board that train. So in Seppi's situation, it was about part of it was about fulfilling a dream and fulfilling a fantasy. The second is that she fell in love with a narcissist. Now, Seppi was easily blindsided. She engaging with a narcissistic man is very easily you can fall prey to them. Because in the beginning, she was enamored with him. She was enamored by his charm. He said and he did all of the right things to make her feel like she had found her Prince Charming. But she lost perspective. So when he emotionally abused her, she held out hope, like most abused women do, that the person that she first met will return. So, that was the second. And I do have a chapter in there about Valentine's Day, and I would like to share that. And it's very telling, and this really speaks to exactly, what I've just said.
Right.
So the chapter on Valentine's Day, she's at work and Teddy sends her a box of long stem roses. She had never, ever received a box of long stem roses, no less sent to her workplace. And in the card it read, "You're my angel that fell from the sky. All my love, Teddy." Well, to surprise him and his daughter, on the way home from work, she stops at a very expensive French bistro, and she decides that she wants to pick up an expertly prepared meal to surprise both of them. There wasn't a plan to go out, but when she reaches the house, he and his daughter are both in the car, getting ready to leave for a restaurant. And with all of her running around, she missed his phone call, but despite her efforts, and that she bought all of this food, he was intent on going to the restaurant. And in this, I will read that excerpt. What am I supposed to do with all of this delicious food that I bought? She asked with disappointment. It was expensive, and it's a shame to waste. With you, Sep, it's always about money, said Teddy. You can stay here and eat it, or you can come with us. I won't eat food that is a day old, so you can always take it for lunch tomorrow. The dog also likes beef, and we can cut some into his dish when we return home.
You know, that was a very telling excerpt, and I'm so glad you picked that one because it really shows all the things we're talking about what men like this are, because they make these grandiose, wonderful gestures that bring you in, and then they do something to knock you down. So a lot of it is really about the control and all about keeping women off balance as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then lastly is that Seppi looked at Teddy as being somebody who was larger than life. She met him at a happy hour in a restaurant while he was hosting his firm's annual event. But her dream since then was to be his escort and to be on his arm. So once they started dating and once she had moved in with him, again, his annual event came around. And she thought, because they were going into the city and he was taking a hotel room, she thought that she would be going to this event. And she spends the entire day, she's at a hair salon, she has an updo, and she even takes his daughter with them because she knows, intuition tells her as a mother, that Lily will be very disappointed that Seppi and Dad are going out for a night on the town and she'll have to stay home. So she takes the girl with her, has her hair done, and on the way home, Lily finds a lipstick in the cup, and she puts lipstick on and she loves her hair, and both are very excited to get home. And Lily is so excited to show her father what she looks like. So once they get home, all hell breaks loose. He is extremely upset and very disappointed and starts yelling at Seppi, "How could you do this? She's a little girl and she looks like she's going to a senior prom." And in that excerpt, he says to her, because, she tries to, not only apologize, she tries to reason with him that his daughter was so excited to show him what she looks like. And if anything, please don't do this in front of her because it makes it look like I've done something to make him angry at her. So he says to her in this part, "I'm done discussing this. And if you keep pressing me in this conversation, you can stay home tonight with her," he scolded. Seppi thought to herself, I hate myself. I hate myself at this moment for allowing him to make me feel low and small. I hate myself for allowing him to treat me like I'm his underdog and not his equal. He takes my common sense, the things I'm so right about, and shoves it down my throat. I'm inclined to pull every last curl out of my updo and tell him to go fuck himself and to drive to his party without me. He needs a swift foot up his ass without lubricant to prove to him that I'd rather spend Saturday night with Lily than be with a nasty, condescending asshole. Oh, my dream of going to this event in the Blue Room is magnified in my head. It's bigger than life. Is it worth eating crow?
Well, and then of course she does go, and we as readers, as we're going along through her journey with this man, we're seeing many of the red flags, but Seppi isn't seeing them. And Seppi is like many other women who get involved in this kind of relationship and either don't see the red flags or choose to ignore them. So, what are some of the red flags that you think women should really be aware of?
There are a couple. One is if a woman finds herself conceding more than compromising and just giving in. The second, which is very important, are friends and family being concerned about the relationship, because they sometimes see what you can't see, and they're a very good barometer. The other is if a person has controlling behavior. Another could be the inability to resolve conflicts. Also concerns about the partner's behavior. And then the other one is the pressure to become serious too fast.
Yeah,
If a man is really rushing you into that situation. So before long, Seppi had already moved into Teddy's home with him. So
exactly. And that all happened very, very quickly. And another really good point you raised is when friends and family express concern. And it's often very difficult. I mean, many of us have been through that with friends or family, and we see someone in a relationship that, we really think is damaging. And often it's very hard as a friend or someone in the family to even speak up and say something to that person. And then often if they do, they're actually pushed aside because the woman in that relationship will often tend to defend the guy that she's with and actually get angry at the person who's trying to deliver this message to her. But that's certainly, I think, something that's really important, and that women who are in that situation, if they have a friend or family members who are concerned, they really need to take that to heart and take a look at that relationship.
yeah, Cheryl, I want to just bounce off something that you mentioned, which is I think is very important. I think it becomes very difficult when you have two single friends, two single women, and you have one woman who is engaged in a relationship, could be in an emotionally abusive relationship, for the other friend to be able to share her thoughts about that, because sometimes it's looked upon as a jealousy thing. Well, you're just saying that because I'm in a relationship and you're not. So, many times you tread in very thin water in that kind of a situation.
Exactly. So it took Seppi actually quite a long time, several years actually, to finally free herself of this relationship. But she's not alone in that either. That happens also very, very often to women in these situations. So, what do you think are some of the reasons that women stay in this kind of abusive relationship?
Well, I like to say that the fear of being alone is sometimes greater than the fear of being with the wrong person. When in a relationship where it could be divorce or death or just the end of a long-term relationship, it's hard when a lot of your friends are part of a couple, and the whole social dynamic changes greatly, especially if you're surrounded by couple friends, and there might be this great need to attach yourself to somebody else. Sometimes you have women who come from a family history where they've witnessed, it could be emotional or physical abuse, and in these situations it's really about recognition and being able to break the cycle, because sometimes women who have a history like that, they feel like they don't deserve to have better, whether they've witnessed emotional or physical abuse between the parents or if they're lashing out at the child, they don't feel that they deserve to have something better than what they're used to.
Right.
And then, lastly, it's very comforting to feel needed and wanted. And sexually, that's one way that a woman can really feel that somebody is filling that void. And I do want to go back to something else that I said about, you know, having this love affair with yourself and really understanding what it is you're looking for. Because if as a woman you're not just looking to have a good time and sleep around, you're looking for that monogamous relationship where you have a good physical connection and an emotional connection. If you're not getting that emotional connection, then that physicality is filling the void very short term. At the end of the day, you're really not getting what you need. So it's really knowing yourself and being able to figure out what it is that you're looking for.
Well, Robin, thank you for sharing all that. And it's so great because I know that you're being a counselor, you've brought such a great perspective on these very important issues, actually. And I just want to hold up your book again, if we could go see it. The book is, as I said, it's a wonderful book. It truly is a great story. It's a page turner, and it does raise these really important issues around women in midlife dating, women in relationships. It's a great book for book clubs, and you have just the kind of conversations that we're having here this evening. And I know that Robin also would be a great speaker at any women's groups who are talking about these kinds of issues as well. So really, we thank you for writing not only such a great novel, but for one that also is really on important topics that women can think about and start to talk about. Also, I just want to say, I know we have some people writing comments in the chat box, and please feel free to do that. And if you have questions, and afterwards, Robin promises she'll respond to everyone and answer your questions a little later in the evening. So now, though, I want to bring in someone else who's very special here tonight. And this is Samantha, and Robin's beautiful and talented daughter.
Aww.
And Samantha, I know that you were very involved with your mom's book. We're going to talk about that, and certainly very supportive of what she was doing. So tell us how you feel right now about your mom becoming a first-time novelist.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Cheryl. What a sweet introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam. I'm Robin's daughter, and I'm the very proud illustrator of the Searching for September novel. And Cheryl, I know I can definitely speak for both myself and mom and say that we're just so happy, especially my mom, to be part of the Three Tomatoes family and your book publishing company. So thank you so much for the intro. And Rob, I call her Rob. It's just a thing. You might catch hints of this in the book because this fictional character, also her daughter, calls her by her first name, Sup. So first off, I just want to take a moment and say how proud I am of you, Rob, for publishing your first novel. And Mom, you've always pushed me to follow my own dreams. So now that I see that you've accomplished, one of your own lifelong dreams in becoming an author, I'm truly inspired by that. So thank you. And if anyone, on this live thing knows me, I've been an artist my entire life. It's in my blood and my DNA. So it's quite fitting that I could really gift this to you, Mom, with this cover illustration for your first book.
Thank you.
That is so special, and I love to see the mother-daughter connection. I have a daughter too, and we've co-written a couple of books together, and we're partners at the Three Tomatoes. So I really know how special it is, this mother-daughter bond, and especially when you get a chance to be creative together, it makes it even more special. And so, as you said, you did the cover illustration for this book, and it's really an extraordinary cover. But before we show the cover again and have you talk a little bit about the design and what you were thinking as you did that, I think it would be good, Robin, if you share a little bit about what influenced that cover, because there's a very, you touched on the Blue Room a little bit earlier in the book, but that becomes a real focal point of the story. So if you can just give a little background on that, and then Sam can talk about how the cover design evolved from that.
Yes, well, I think, you know, as I've mentioned earlier, Seppi yearns to attend Teddy's annual work party at this notorious Blue Room, which is a room that's in the restaurant where she went for a happy hour. And it seems to be that getting into that event with him, into that Blue Room, is a prize that she could never attain, because Teddy keeps her away from his professional life. But, you know, after years of being denied access to visit to go into the Blue Room and be at this event with him, she kind of complies, you know, with his rationale, and year after year, she waits at a hotel in the city and waits until his event is over, and then he meets her back at the hotel. But this is a huge dream of hers, and it is a focal point throughout the book about getting into this Blue Room.
So Sam, tell us how the cover evolved from this then.
Sure.
Bring up the cover for a minute so everyone can take a look at it.
Awesome. Thanks, Cheryl. So yeah, a little background. I'm now an interior designer after all of the years of art and curating, you know, what will I do? So I'm an interior designer, and, you know, I've always worked to create such a rich story from the color palettes that I put together and build into each of my own projects. So for the Searching for September artwork, I really wanted to draw on this main character's infatuation with the Blue Room and illustrate what that room would look like to the character Seppi. So I chose a really muted ice blue tonal palette for the design, not only to resemble the room itself, but to also evoke different emotions from the reader who picks up the book. So it's true that there really is a psychology behind every color. And blue, for instance, you know, it represents a journey, and it symbolizes wisdom and also understanding. And so on the other hand, though, blue also represents feeling blue, and there is some negativity behind it. It represents the depths of, you know, the mind and how we can get carried away from ourselves. So in the illustration, we see a woman who's all dressed up, and, you know, she's dolled up and she shows up, but what will she find when she opens those doors? The artwork really, you know, toys with reality and fantasy, but it's for readers to decide where one ends and the other begins.
Well, it's absolutely perfect. And I also love, too, the dimensional aspect of the illustration as well. I mean, it feels very dimensional. You really feel she's about to walk through this door.
Right.
Just beautiful, beautiful job for bringing to life this really wonderful book, a wonderful story. You've really done you're a really gifted writer, Robin. I'm just so honored to know you, because you're such a great person too, but to have had the opportunity to publish your book, and also to be able to use the book to have these very important conversations, you know, like we were having this evening. So I hope that as soon as everyone leaves here tonight, they will rush to Amazon or to their local bookstore tomorrow and get a copy of Searching for September. And then, as I said, too, to think about if you have a book club or if you have a group that you'd like to invite Robin to, it's really a great conversation for women to sit around, have a glass of wine, which I think we should now lift our glasses of wine and share a little cheers to you, Robin, and to you, Sam, for being so supportive of your mother, but also creating a really brilliant cover. Book covers are so important these days.
And to you and the Three Tomatoes, because you believed in the dream and helped make it a reality. So cheers.
Thank you. I wish we were in person so we could clink these glasses.
I know. We could pretend.
Cheryl, you're finding value in my writing as an author. I've been able to bring forth the voice. I believe for so many women who are struggling in these relationships, and that really was the basis for me to create this character. And you've done it. You've put it out there to an audience, and I'm ever so grateful. And Sam, what can I say?
That was your gift for your birthday. So also on the record, I've never heard my mother curse so much. I don't think she knows it's live. I don't think she knows. I hope.
I know she was a little nervous about saying some of those words, but I'm like, it's okay. I don't think
it was very good. Nothing was abbreviated.
Yeah, but there's times when those words are very appropriate, and they were very appropriate.
They totally are.
Stories. There are no others that could have quite hit home quite the same
and
way.
She's from Brooklyn, so
exactly. So the other really exciting news here is that there's a sequel coming out in the future. And I know people who read the book are going to be very happy to hear that, because I think you get to the end of the book and the book, wraps itself up, but there are still questions, and you have the sense that there's more to this story. And there definitely is, and that's going to be very exciting too. So I hope that we'll be able to publish that too when it comes out. So before we wrap up tonight, and as I said, I think this has been great. Thank you all who were here tonight for joining us, and people who will watch this later on demand, and or you want to watch it again, it's going to be available here on Facebook and also on YouTube. So Robin, do you have any final words of wisdom that you would like to share with us, with our audience, with women out there who are dealing with midlife dating, or end up in a relationship that's not the best?
I will go back to what I think are the two most important things. And one is, once a relationship ends, whether it's through death or marriage, death or divorce, or just a long-term relationship, so important not to jump into another relationship, but to really give yourself the wonderful gift of you, because you need to have that relationship with yourself. If you can't come to terms with what you really need and what's important to you, there's nobody else that can give that to you. And then the second is being your authentic self, and really putting forth the things that you know are going to work for you, and stepping out on that ledge and not being afraid that what you're going to say will usher somebody away, because if that's what happens, ain't your guy.
Great advice. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. So we're going to end with just showing our book trailer again. Again, we thank you all for being here. Again, congratulations, Robin, Sam, and everybody go and buy the book.